Hi, my name is Mike Moore and I work here at the Hillsborough County Courthouse. That's the building behind me. A little bit later on we're going to go inside and take a tour and show you what life is like to work at the courthouse. One of the things you may notice outside, this is the big statue. That's Lady Justice. And you may notice on Lady Justice, she has a blindfold on. The reason? It's all about justice is blind. Truth and justice for everyone. Not being judged by your race or your color, your age, your sex, how much money you have. It's all supposed to be about justice is equal for everyone. This is also called the George Edgecomb Courthouse building. In just a second, I'm going to explain to you who he is and why we've named this courthouse building after him. Now, the Edgecomb Courthouse building is our newest building. It was built in 2004. It only holds civil trials and cases. Those were cases where it's just all about money. No one is going to go to jail if someone's found guilty of something. Now, over here, this is our annex building. This building was built back in the 60s, and this is where we hold all our criminal cases and criminal trials. Now, the building across the street from the annex building is our old courthouse. We call it the historic courthouse. That building was built in the 1950s. It actually was built to replace the old historic courthouse, which was built in 1892. Not much left of that building except a dome down there in Joe Chirilla Courthouse Park and some doors in the courthouse that I'll show you later. 419 Pierce Street went out of use for the courthouse in the 50s. It is now the home of the state attorney's office. They're the ones in charge of prosecuting cases for criminal trials. And right beside it, across the street, is a building that has a lot of different people in it, but it also has our public defender's office. The public defenders, they're the ones that represent criminal defendants. Sometimes they can hire a private attorney, or if they can't afford one, the public defender, you've heard that perhaps on television, can be provided for them, and their offices are in that building right there. All together, this is all part of being downtown, our courthouse complex, which is all part of the 13th Judicial Circuit Court. Okay, we've obviously come inside the lobby of the courthouse. We've gone through security. Everyone that comes into the courthouse has to go through security. And now, because of COVID, we all have to wear a mask. We had our temperature taken. That's why we're doing this tour virtually. That's life right now. But this is the George Edgecomb Courthouse, and this is Judge George Edgecomb. The reason he's so significant and why we named this building after him, he was the very first African-American judge in Hillsborough County. August 13th, 1973, he was appointed a county judge here in Hillsborough County. Unfortunately, leukemia took a toll on his life, and less than 3 years later, January 22nd, 1976, he passed away. His career wasn't lengthy, but his career was very distinguished. He was also the first black assistant state's attorney, so he was very much involved in a trendsetter in enabling things to be different. If you look around the courthouse now, we see a number of judges that are black, male and female, and Hispanic. Now our judges are reflecting more of what society looks like, and that's very important. Now behind me is the jury auditorium. One of the reasons a lot of people have to come to the courthouse is they get called for jury duty. Now, if you're not 18, don't worry about it. You can't get called for that. It's 18 and above. And they used to do it if you were a registered voter. Now, if you have a driver's license, and most of you will have a driver's license someday, you could be called for jury duty. But you know what? Jury duty is fundamental to our legal system. The role of the juror is important. In fact, a juror in a trial, their role is just as important as the judge or the attorneys, because they're the ones that are going to decide the case, whether a person is innocent or a person is guilty. This is very important. We understand how important that is and how difficult it is for people to take time out of their schedule to come here. So the clerk of the court, they're in charge of summoning our jurors, and then they go and perhaps get picked by attorneys for a particular case. So if you do get picked someday, get summons for jury duty, I hope you'll realize it's part of your civic duty, and you'll do it with pride and excitement, and look forward to, you might see something interesting, and sometimes what we do is with these lines right here, it's because we want to keep socially distanced. Remember, we're wearing the mask because of the COVID, so our jurors are coming in differently. They used to come in all on a Monday. We'd call 500, 700 jurors. Now we're doing it every day of the week, different times of the day, so we don't have so many people here at once. Then they go into that room in there where they're all seated, socially distanced, and just to keep everyone safe while we deal with this coronavirus. This is inside the jury auditorium, as you can see. This is a big room, and yet because of social distancing, it can't hold as many people as it used to. That's one of the reasons why we're calling jurors Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, sometimes twice or even 3 times throughout that day. It's all about getting as many jurors as we can and keeping them safe and keeping them distanced. But jury duty, it's something hopefully you're not going to dread, but if you get called, you'll look forward to, and it'll be a learning experience. We're here now outside one of our holding cells. We have holding cells all throughout all the buildings, all the floors, but this is the one we're going to show you. Very interesting place called a holding cell. Now, the reason a person would be in a holding cell is they are here for a hearing or for a trial, and they're still in custody at the jail. So when they're not in the courtroom for their hearing or trial, they're going to be waiting inside one of these holding cells. As you can see, a big echo in here. This is not a place designed for comfort. People aren't spending the night here. This is a hard brick. You're not going to want to, people do lay down, but you're not going to get comfortable here. The other thing you can notice is, here is the bathroom, so to speak. Not a lot of privacy, not a lot of privacy at all. This is not designed for comfort. Hopefully you're only going to be in here for a few days. We have holding cells that can hold up to 25 inmates. This is one that's going to be designed to hold maybe one person here and one person in the other room just around this corner. But again, all the comforts of home, but not a place you want to hang out. These are really not beds per se, as benches, and that does mean there could be more than one person in here. These are kind of smaller. Doesn't mean they're limited to just one person, but as you can see, there's a bench behind me, and there was a bench over here. And that's designed because there's going to be sometimes more than one person. Again, these are not people spending the night here. They're not staying here overnight or over a weekend. It's just when they have to come to the courthouse while they're waiting to go into a courtroom for their hearing. Of course, right now with COVID, while we're wearing the masks, we're not bringing inmates into the courthouse hardly at all, other than for trials and a few select hearings. So the number of inmates coming into the courthouse right now, way, way, way down. Well, since we're in a holding cell, that leads me to want to tell you about when you first get arrested. I hope you don't ever get arrested, but if you do get arrested, you have the opportunity within 24 hours to go before a judge if you haven't bonded out ahead of time, so you could determine 2 things. First, what are the charges, and what would the bond be? Now, the bond is just amount of money that you have to pay that secures your promise to show up for all court hearings. If you were to bond out, say the bond was $1,000, and then you didn't show up for court, guess what? You're going to forfeit that bond. So a lot of people like to show up so they can get that bond money back. Now, if you do get arrested in Hillsborough County, you're going to go to one of 2 places, either the Orient Road Jail or the jail at Falkenberg Road, and that's where you are at the jail, and the use of video cameras, you go and visit a judge. You don't physically come to the courthouse every time you get arrested. The judge is in a special courtroom where he can see the video cameras and see on monitors the inmates that are at those 2 jails. And at the jails, they can see the judges as well as hear from the attorney. So that's what we call first appearance court, also referred to as PP court. We're not trying to be silly. PP court is preliminary presentation. It's our video courtroom, and we use that a lot these days because of COVID and the fact, as I said earlier, we're not bringing inmates to the courthouse very often at all. All right, that's a look at a holding cell, perhaps a fun place to visit on a tour, not a place you want to be in real life. As you can see, I'm beside another statue of Lady Justice. Justice is blind. You may have seen other statues of Lady Justice. Sometimes she's holding a sword in one hand and a scale in the other hand. Again, talking about justice with the sword and the scale being fair and balanced for all. Now, if you see over this shoulder, this is a picture taken from 2020 of our judges. We have 62 judges here in the 13th Judicial Circuit. We have 4 judges that are out in Plant City. The rest are right here in downtown Tampa. This is kind of a unique scenario because a lot of places have courthouses all throughout their county or in multiple counties. I mentioned earlier there are 20 circuits. We are part of the 13th Judicial Circuit. Florida has 67 counties, and there's a county courthouse in all 67 counties. But there are 20 circuits around the state, and we are one of 5 single county circuits. Along with us, there's Miami-Dade, Palm Beach, Broward, and Monroe. Monroe County is where the Florida Keys are. Those other counties are based on population, but the Keys, it's based on geography. It's just so long and narrow, they made them their own circuit. But this is something where 58 of our 62 judges are right here in this building or in the annex building where we do our criminal trials. Here are the doors I mentioned earlier in terms of from our courthouse was built in the late 1800s. 1891, these doors right here. Now these doors were preserved and saved when that courthouse was torn down. In fact, they were in storage and lost for over 50 years, but they're back when we built this new courthouse here in 2004. Speaking of the courthouse, how long ago this was, I told you these doors came from 1891. Well, how old is our court system? How about our first judge? Would you believe our first judge was a judge named Augustus Steele from 1834. That's right, 1834. He was our first judge. Judge Augustus Steele kind of looks like an aristocrat with the outfit he's wearing, and it's kind of interesting. He also played a big role in helping establish the city of Tampa, which had a population of less than 1,000 at the time, as the county seat for Hillsborough County, also back in the early 1800s. So our first judge, Judge Augustus Steele. And if you look at some of these other judges, we have all these pictures of some of our judges from our history. Some of the earlier judges in the 1800s, it really does look like judges from the Wild West. We have judges with the big mustaches and the big beards. Some of them look like they should be in the group ZZ Top. But it really was a circuit back then as they would travel around and visit different areas within the circuit. But that's some of our history, some of our judges way back into the 1800s. Well, here in the lobby of Courtroom 1, this is our big ceremonial courtroom, which we'll see in just a second. We have all these photos of judges that have retired. I showed you some of the earlier judges. I mentioned Judge George Edgecomb, who was the first black judge here in Hillsborough County, 1973. And then in 1983, we saw some women. Judge Susan Bucklew became our first female judge. It says here that she was a circuit judge in 1986, but she was a county judge in 1983. So now we have men and women of color, and we also have, later on, judges who are Hispanic as well. So our judges are starting to look just like the rest of society, which is very important. This is inside Courtroom 1. Now, as you can see, it's a large room. This is where we hold our really big trials or special hearings. We don't hold court in here every day. Special ceremonies, staff meetings, when judges get sworn in. This is also where the pictures of our retired judges are now the most current. If you look along the walls, these are some of the judges that even retired in 2020. I look forward to the day when you can come into the courthouse and we can do a tour in person. We can take these masks off and get to know each other. I hope you've enjoyed the tour. I hope you've learned something, that you want to come back and learn even more about your courthouse.